Well, hello again from the Crotchety Old Men podcast. Hi, I'm Gary Smith, one of the co-hosts of the Crotchety Old Men podcast, and we've got the whole team in the studio today. My main man, Paul P.C. Clemens, in the house, and of course, our general, as I like to call him, our host, George Crumley. Yeah, he's over there laughing. I told you we're gonna keep it crotchety. We keep it crotchety every week when we come on the show.
Amen.
So,
Amen to that.
you know, so PC, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Everything is everything, Gary. I'm glad to be here with my double G brothers, Gary and George. And the day is never better without the two of you all.
Amen to that. All right, brother G.
Oh yeah, well, it's always good to get together and talk about, the world and talk about the different issues going on and talk about, money and health and, just provide our audience with a different perspective from, three crotchety old men.
So, George, what's on the topic of our list today? What are we talking about?
Well, Smitty, I've been reading this book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And I thought it would be interesting for us just to have a conversation because, as we get older and we, expose ourselves to different things, we begin to get a different perspective of life and, how we've kind of gone through this process and how some of the things that, have happened to us kind of happenstance and put us in positions where, it's been very fruitful. But, in reading this book, I said, well, heck, if I had read this book, 40 years ago, it may have had a different perspective. So for our audience, I highly, recommend, picking this up and read. It's a very easy read and has some very, a lot of interesting stories, a lot of good anecdotes. And I think it's a very, very good book for those that are looking at, being financially fit. And I'll just tell you, it's not about money and different stocks and things like that. It's a whole different perspective.
So, George, before the recording, when you and I got into a discussion, and one of the things that was interesting to me about your introduction of this book was the fact that you asked me a very pertinent question: would I rather have more time, or would I rather have more money? So why don't you elaborate on that since you read the book and give us a synopsis of what the book's perspective is on that?
Well, yeah, the premise of the book is that you can do well. Doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and has a lot to do with your behavior. And behavior is hard to teach, even with two really smart people. Okay, so when you ask that question, what would you rather have? It's deep thought there. So, since me and you have already entertained that, the most logical thing to do is switch it over to Smitty and ask him, which is more important, having more money or having more time?
Without a doubt.
That's kind of dangerous, George. I don't know if you want to do that or not, but let's try it and see.
Well, since you're going to put them together, certainly time is. I'd rather have more time than have more money. All right, and I don't know if I got to explain the reasons why, but time is a commodity that you cannot save and you cannot get back. So when it comes to philosophies or psychologies about money, my philosophy perhaps parallels with the author in that it's certainly time would be numero uno. And you hear this thing says, that time is money. Well, it's a good way to look at it, but time is not money.
No, you can spend money and you can make more money, but you can't get time back. You can only spend it one time.
That's right. You can't make time. So
yeah.
So let me ask you this, George, what are some of the antidotes that the book suggests in terms of time versus money, since we're on this subject right now?
I'll tell a real quick story. It's called The Man and the Car Paradox. So the author, Morgan Housel, was basically he worked at a large hotel, in Los Angeles, and basically he parked cars. And one of the things that he learned was, a lot of people rolled in there with their Maseratis and Lamborghinis, and these guys would jump out, decked head to toe. But the thing that escaped them was not that the people were looking at them, but the people were really looking at their cars. So here again, people buy cars and expensive things thinking it's going to enhance their, approval rating. But in actuality, it doesn't do that at all.
Yeah, you see that a lot in business. People, especially salespeople, use props. I call them props. A nice new suit, Brook Brothers suit, shine shoes, if they can afford it, if they've earned it, a Rolex watch or a nice fancy watch or whatever, with the mindset or philosophy of impressing whoever their audience is. And so often we are impressed by what we see and stuff. And so our philosophy about money is more of to appease or appeal to others versus to use money for what money really and truly is. And money is a defense. Okay. And so if you have the wrong philosophy about money, and this subject can go really, I mean, it can be very broad as well as very pungent in terms of our philosophy about money really dictates to exactly how we use our money or our resources, whether we squander it away on some of these flashy things, or if our philosophy about money is that, a penny earned is a penny saved. And, and I say we as people, period, particularly us as African Americans, our philosophy on money is flawed for the most part. And we look at it as something that, we don't invest it as like we should. And when you spend it, you only think about money when you need it. Whereas proper philosophy, they always think about money, whether you need it or not. Because to
I
our
think
point earlier,
philosophy. Yeah, I think philosophy is important. I want to ride your coattail for a minute about that because our honorable basketball player Dikembe Mutombo passed away, and I was listening to an article or an interview rather about Dikembe, and what he was saying was that he was taking a shower with him, and they spoke, and he said that Dikembe talked about how beautiful it is to have running water. And running water was one of the things that he didn't have coming up in his community in the Congo. And when he became famous, he put a lot of money into rebuilding the infrastructure in the Congo after it had been depleted during the war in the 60s. And I think you're spot on when you say, the philosophy of money and how important it is to really concern yourself with where you are, and not necessarily the perspective that you project per se is more important than anything, because perspective is just perspective. It doesn't have anything to do with anything real per se.
Yeah, I
mhm,
mean, right now, we even through our podcast, we're always talking about, the rules of money, and how to invest money, and these types of things you need to do to keep money, and but what we fail to talk about is the emotion of money. And see, that's the real key. It's the emotion of money, and how that affects you, because that's going to dictate how you save, because when you make money, you know, depending on how you feel is going to dictate, are you going to take that paycheck and go out here and buy a new suit? Or if you're going to take that paycheck and, split it up 10% here, 10% there, 10% there, looking at how it's going to benefit you in the long run. That's something you never hear anybody talk about until it's too late. Okay. And those are the kind of things that they talk about in this book, and which is really interesting, because they even talk about, is getting wealthy, is it luck or is it risk? I mean, it could be either one. For example, he tells a story about in which everybody's heard the story. We know that you got the janitor that works for, 50, 60 years, bought one house, lived in that house all year long. Then when he dies, he's got $8 million in the bank. because of the fact that he valued, what he could save and then what the money could do for others. So, it's different stories you hear like this all the time, but you have to look at the emotion that he went through, not the process. And see, it's interesting here again is that, ordinary folks with no financial education can become wealthy, but only those that are studied can become doctors and lawyers. So here again, being wealthy is open to everybody. You just got to have the right mindset and behavioral skills to get there.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
no
think you're
doubt.
you're spot on, George, with the right thinking concept. You got to have right thinking. In my area of expertise in the holistic world, we talk about right thinking as being an issue with disease, and the lack of right thinking and how it can create disease. Just think about the flip side of that, in which you were describing, George, where right thinking creates a modicum of wealth for you.
You know, having that right mindset, aka philosophy, will certainly either enable you to create and build wealth, or it's going to help you enable you to create and build wealth for someone else. A lot of people
Hmm.
have the mindset of that trying to work their way to wealth, and that's not the way it's done. And to George's point, um, just because you have an education doesn't make you wise. Certainly doesn't make you wealthy. Majority of the people, particularly the billionaires and millionaires, a lot of them didn't even finish, didn't go to college. And there's certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say that people who have a college degree or whatever went to college are not wealthy, because there's a lot of those too. Wealth is a perspective as well. Wealth doesn't necessarily mean you got to have $1 million or $1 billion in your bank account. Wealth is the ability to live your life in a lifestyle and to help others. Okay, and to have a happy and healthy life. Okay. And much of the stress that comes upon most Americans, which to your point, Paul, brings on these diseases, disease, is because of our philosophy, the way we think about money. And so you work your way trying to attain wealth into sickness. And then when you attain that wealth, you're spending all your money on medicine. Okay. But having the proper philosophy about money and putting that money to work for you, um, I want my money to make babies, okay, and make more of them, all right, because money can make more money a heck of a lot faster than Gary Smith can make money. And so that's what it is. Your philosophy has to be of one that your money has to have an assignment. And so often we don't give our money assignments. We see TV and we see what the athletes are doing with their money. And we see what the rappers and entertainment will do with their money. And when you look at what you see, and that's why it's so important that we not base our lifestyle or our philosophy about money on what we see on TV, because those things are entrapments. If you take your hard earned money and you're trying to buy the stuff that Jay-Z and Beyonce buy, you're going to die broke. Okay, you try to do what Kevin Poston or what some of the basketball players and stuff that are out there, Steph Curry and them doing stuff like that, you're going to be poor. So you can't pattern yourselves after money, the way people use money from what you see. You have to start patterning yourself about having the right philosophy about money and making sure that that money works for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's the whole thing. You said something interesting about the $1 million. I see so many books on shelves, the $1 million this, how to make a millionaire. And then it's funny that's marketing, because you don't have to have $1 million to be wealthy. Because here again, as we talked about before, having your time back is the real wealth, because now you're able to enjoy life as God wanted you to do it, and now you're able to do things for other people, because with your time, the time is more valuable, than the money. So you don't have to have $1 million. You just have to have what's going to make you comfortable. And that's what I've always said. I don't want to be, a millionaire. I just want to be comfortable. And that's how you have to be comfortable, and access. Those are the kind of things that I think make you more a well-rounded individual. Warren Buffett said, if you don't find a way to make money while you're asleep, then you'll work, for the rest of your life. And that's true. And like Smitty was just saying, you can't really work yourself to it. But what you can do is you can work smarter and allow your money to work as hard as you are while you're sleeping and while you're doing everything else. And I
Good
think that's
point.
one of the things that, have benefited us through life. And that's one of the things that we're trying, to impress upon our young folks. Yeah, it's good to go out there and doing your major earning years to make as much money as you can, but make sure you're doing something with that money that's going to allow you to live the rest of your life, to do what you want to do. And, so like you say, you don't go out there and buy the big fancy car, the big, the bling bling and all this stuff. I hear so many of these stories about, I was watching a game show the other day, and the guy asked him, what are you going to do if you win this 250,000? The guy was like, I'm going to buy me some more bling bling. Okay. Yeah, that's what they want you to do, be a
Exactly.
consumer,
Right. Right.
Hey, that's not the way to go. And like I said, this book it examines all those types of things. It examines greed. It talks about the Madoffs and, how he was a millionaire prior to, but he got greedy and then he created this Ponzi scheme and then he ends up in jail. He would have been fine. He had everything he wanted, but he got greedy. And the book talks about greed and how it allows you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, so it's like I say, the psychology of money. It's really interesting when you think about the power that you give money and that you really shouldn't.
Right. Because, in the totality of things, George, money is an amplifier. All right. If you was a fool when you was broke, you're just going to be a bigger fool now that you got some money. Okay. And if you were smart, then you're just going to be a smarter person just with money. And talk about time. And I often get chided about this sometimes that, there's a lot of people who choose to cut their own grass. Because they said, well, I'm not going to pay a landscaper or somebody to cut it and stuff like that. And where there's another group of people who wouldn't dare touch a lawnmower because they would rather sow into another man's or woman's business as a landscaping company, pay them that $50. And the person who's paying that $50, you've done two things now. You've sold in another business. That business continues to go on and grow. But more importantly, what you did was you bought yourself more time to do the things that you want to do. I would rather be reading a book like The Philosophy of Wealth or Money in that same amount of time than I would be out there cutting some daggone grass. All right. Hire somebody that does that for a living, that cuts 10, 15 lawns a day. I don't cut 10 or 15 lawns a day. So I would much rather pay that $50 a cut. And so I can go over here and concentrate on what I do best, my skills, strengths, and opportunities, and make 10x that $50 in that same amount of time. So we have to think about money in those terms, how to leverage other people's resources in order to strengthen our own.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna let you kind of ponder on this. It says to understand why people get into debt, you have to study the history of greed, insecurity, and optimism. Think
Oh,
about that. Think about that. You know, why you? I mean, that's just it. If you're greedy, you're out here buying stuff on credit, and you just instead of waiting, instead of building, you know,
mhm.
insecurities. You're out here buying stuff because you think it's going to make you feel better that you don't really need. You got two or three and four of the same thing, insecurity, So it's just words, when you hear people say, words mean things, and they do. Think about it.
Mhm.
Think about it. Greed, insecurity, and optimism.
I think that's one of the reasons why so many Ponzi schemes work. It's the reason why the lotteries makes billions
Selling
of
hope.
dollars, you know, because of that same thing, greed and the optimism, thinking that you're going to win. In those type of, I call them all scams and schemes. Anytime you so-called invest in those, if you win the lottery, that means hundreds of millions of people have lost money. That is not the principle of money, and that's not a good philosophy, and it's certainly not the way God created the monetary system. If I have to cheat you or beat you down in your price on what your product or service is in order to win, thinking I've gotten over on you. That dog doesn't hunt, and it's not going to last. So with that philosophy about someone has to lose in order for me to win, it's not a good philosophy, and it's certainly not sustainable. So our philosophy about money has got to be a win-win situation. If Paul has a holistic company or a practice, then it behooves me to use his resources, pay this man, listen to this man. If you got books, tapes, or whatever, I'm going to immerse myself in them because here's an expert who has information that I could use. He's going to help me, and certainly by buying his information, it's going to help him. That's the way our philosophy of money that I've always described to is that I've got to sow in someone else's business in order to reap in my own.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to take all the thunder out of the book. I hope our audience that is listening here will, run out and grab it. Like I said, it's a very easy read. It's a lot of short chapters, a lot of good stories. I'm going to leave you with one other story about Paul Allen and Bill Gates. They were in a situation where they were, when you think about all the different high schools in America, and they lived in the state of Washington. They happened to go to a school where a World War II veteran had been exposed to computers through the government, and he basically made sure there was some money allocated so that they could get a computer in their school, and hence, you pretty much know the story of how Microsoft was formed by these two gentlemen, but the underlining part of this story, there was a third gentleman. His name was Kent Evans. And basically, Kent was smarter than Bill Gates and Paul Allen. But unfortunately, he was killed in a mountain climbing accident when they were they were probably about 15 years old. So, here again, we talked about, is getting wealthy, is it luck? Is it a risk? So it could be luck too, because, here again, it should have been three of them and it was only two. So, it's interesting, that, when you examine different stories and how things have transpired through life and position that people have been put in, sometimes we have no control of, but, we can always put ourselves in position, and that's what it's all about. So that when things come along, we're in a position to receive.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Stephen Covey or Jim Rome who once said that the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I believe that comes from putting yourself in a position. I can't speak for anyone else, but I've never been in the philosophy of luck per se, because you put yourself in those positions to have things come your way. And if you in the right mindset, you going back to that philosophy about money, if you put yourself in the path of the flow of money, okay, surrounding yourself with people who have the things that maybe you don't have and you want to know how they got them or things of that nature, asking the right questions, reading the right books and things of that nature. I believe that's where your luck will come from. Because when you're reading, okay, again, while that guy's cutting your lawn, if you're reading on books like Philosophy of Money and Think and Grow Rich, we go on and on and on with the titles out there. The aha moment will hit you. You're going to get an idea, or you're going to get a epiphany, if you will, about something, some skill, some resource that you already have that can put you on that path to creating and preserving wealth. And if you do that and you take the philosophy seriously, and I highly encourage, now we're not getting a dime from promoting this book, okay? So no residual, none of that. But we want to share with you other resources. And moving forward, you probably hear us talk about various books about all facets of life and stuff. Sure, we're about economics and prosperity and all that sort of stuff. But you got to have a philosophy of learning. The learners are earners. All right. And to George's point about the Bill Gates situation, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but it helps to be the right person in the room.
Absolutely.
Or have the right person in the room with you.
Absolutely.
Well, let's just say if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room.
In the wrong room.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. So hopefully I'll run out and get The Philosophy of Money by Morgan Housel. So what we got to take us home with today? Who's got the quote?
Well,
I got a quote for us. As a matter of fact, it fits right into what we were saying earlier today. And it goes like this. You're going to meet people who are intimidated by you. You're different. People don't know how to react or how to accept someone who doesn't follow the crowd. They are not used to someone who doesn't try to fit in. So, instead of bolstering your uniqueness, they'll try and make you feel like you're weird or damaged. I'm here to offer some well-earned advice. Screw them.
Okay. Okay. That was good. Was that your own personal tidbit? Did you write that yourself?
No, not that one. I got a few that I have written though.
okay.
You can't
And
take
on that
credit for
note-
that one, huh? All right. Wow. Well,
That's
as we
just all
always
part
say
of
on
being
the
crotchety, I guess.
I guess. Well, as we always say on the Crotchety Old Man, if you didn't know, hey, now you know.
Now you know.
Hey, you guys
Peace,
take
y'all.
care. Be safe.
All right.
Peace.